extra time, waiting for the acolyte. I am gonna catch that fool. You will think I'm really cool. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here, but I'll need some more super breed. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you, catch you, catch you. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here, but I'll need some more super breed. Oh, but I need some more super breed. Oh, but I need some more super breed.
Well, hello, and welcome to, I guess, an early start on Feedback Friday. How's everybody in the chat doing today? My name's Dave. It is October 2020. I am also experimenting with a new mic, so maybe you can let me know how I hear, or how you're hearing me. I think it's peaking a little bit, so I'll turn that down a little. Hello, everybody. So I also switched my streaming software as well, and that caused a little mishap. I went live a little early. Normally I start it up and it connects to YouTube, and then I hit the go live button, but I must have missed that step. So we're here a little bit early. We're here 8 minutes early. You sound good. All right, good to hear. The audio is significantly better. Yay. Well, yes, I actually finally went and got a microphone. It's long overdue. I've been saying it for years. Finally upgraded, so you even if my laptop CPU fan turns on and as it struggles to encode video here, you should not hear the CPU fan. Happy Great Winter Hunt. Same to you, Daniel. Hello, I see Ryan, Julia, Aaron, Brian, Chirp Merkley, Mightst all Cracking Heidi. That seems like a risky name to try to pronounce. Well, hello everybody, and today, so we're going to go over event season a little bit, have a few feedback questions to kind of mix in along with just kind of general behind the scenes, little update on kind of the event season roadmap, give you an update on what the whole dev team is working. Yes, we can hear the fan even clearer now. Well, it's not on yet, so hopefully that'll be okay. It's peaking a little. All right, I'll turn that down. Let me see, there we go. All right, there, now I'm not in the yellow, I don't think. Bear with me, I'm learning a new tech setup here. Hello, can't wait for Great Winter Hunt to start. Hello as well, Desmond. That's a good segue to kind of get into things here and give a little update on what the dev team is working on, and that is primarily event season. So first up is the Great Winter Hunt, and actually today is our due date. We're looking to wrap up work on the Great Winter Hunt so we can start playtesting and fine-tuning, kind of finalizing everything as we kind of tweak and play through it. So as mentioned in the past, the beloved Snow Golem is going to be making a return for the Great Winter Hunt. This year's antagonist, and you may have seen Jacob draw, I think he did this character on a live art stream, I think, but it's the Great Gift Napper Mouse. And that antagonist is bent on stealing and stashing away the entire kingdom's supply of gifts. So it's going to be up to you hunters and your trusty golems to help save the holiday by recovering all those stolen gifts and returning them to their rightful owners. Mako says, please give some good news. This game has been depressing for a while. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that. Brian says, waiting for the Great Winter Hunt to obtain my Rift Trap. Kind of curious to know what you're waiting on. Subra says, can we make the collectibles from previous years either made LE or become easily obtainable this year? It's annoying for the collectors who want the check mark. I believe I'll jot that down. We do an audit of the collectibles every year and make sure that they are obtainable in some way. Game is not depressing at all. So as you can imagine, with a new antagonist, there's going to be a little bit of a different narrative that you're going through. And actually this year is quite a bit different because instead of your golems returning with explosive Christmas crackers to destroy something, whether that was the heaters last year, the year before that you're just destroying icebergs that were en route to smash into the shoreline. And I think in 2007 was the first golem event where you were smashing through layers of the comet. You'll be sending your golems out on gift recovery missions. So you're going to, just like you did in past years, send them out anywhere you want in the kingdom, and they're going to return with recovered gifts instead of the explosive crackers, along with, of course, goodies from that area that you selected as well, kind of random bits of loot. And then when you return those gifts to their rightful owners, they're going to show their appreciation with a treat to upgrade your golems in the form of MILK and cookies. So that'll be kind of a different item. I think last year it was repurposed heater coils you used to upgrade your golem generators, and then it was reinforced ice shards, I think, for the first 2 versions of the event. Ryan says, how will golem upgradings work? I remember you mentioned no more explosive crackers. Well, it will work kind of mechanically in the exact same way, just the theme has been mixed up, changed up. So instead of destroying something, you are kind of restoring something. You're bringing back gifts to give back to people. Marco asks, such as 200 years grind of jewels, another 200 years of swipe power to push my prestige base to T15 for decent FI experience. Well, I don't think you need the prestige base in particular, especially once you complete the adventure. You can get the adorned Aperian jewel base, and that'll hold you over pretty well in the floating islands. Of course, you could be a little bit better off with the prestige base. I did another second. Actually, I haven't quite finished it yet. I got up there, but I think last year I sent all my golems to the Valor Rift. Not all of them, but at least one I had going to the Valor Rift at all times to stock up on a whole lot of ultimate Rift Lucky Power Charms, and that was kind of my strategy to do my big push. Brian says, tossing my golems to the Feroma Rift. It's a pain for me. It says, I think I'll be sending golems to the floating islands, and that will be an option. We're still kind of fine-tuning that a little bit. I think we went over some of the potential floating islands items on last Feedback Friday. Item says, give a depressive frustrating. I got 122 Calor without the rib. Well, that's definitely par for the course, but silver lining, each catch of Calor is worth a handsome amount of gold, so eventually you'll get there where you can afford the rib. Sounds like it's still 10 layers then, yes, but you are returning gifts to 10 different houses or 10 different kind of residents, and each one gets kind of increasingly large than the one before it. So you need more and more gifts to kind of restore happiness at that household. A little bit more uplifting than blowing things up. Will the milk and cookies be available in the Snowball Showdown then? I'll jot that down as well. We haven't quite finished tuning up the Snowball Showdown. Can we have a milk cheese? Same cheese as last year, so you'll be able to put your pecan pecorino or your glazed pecan pecorino to use. And similar to last year as well, you're going to be able to unlock HUD decorations that you can toggle between. So every time you capture this year's antagonist, which is the Great Gift Napper, it's going to drop a wrapping paper themed item, and you can use that to unlock different themes of wrapping paper, and you can toggle those on the heads-up display to decorate the HUD in, let's see if I can remember correctly here, there's winter sports. There are toys, ornament, and I think snow. I think those are the 4, and you can toggle between those, and just like last year, you will attract different mice depending on which decoration you have up. And that's been working pretty well. We've had pretty good feedback from hunters as well in just having that be how we kind of split up how many Great Winter Hunt mice there are, because there are a whole lot of those event mice now. So that kind of helps out with maps as well. You can target a specific mouse. And on that note as well, this stuck snowball mouse has been changed to no longer require a specific decoration. So now anytime you have a variety of Pecan Pecorino armed, there'll be a chance to encounter the stuck snowball mouse. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which mouse we swapped places with. It used to be, I think, one of the snow-themed mice. So if you had the snowflake decoration up on your heads-up display, the stuck snowball mouse was added to the encounter pool. But now that has been swapped with another mouse, so now you don't need a particular decoration. I know last year we had some feedback from hunters that were looking to earn a King's Crown on the stuck snowball, or just kind of enjoyed the unique reward structure that mouse has, but didn't like having to kind of indulge on a specific cookie and kind of imbalance loot drops that way. Michael says, I think the game is so grindy nowadays. I think you guys can feel that too, and it doesn't really bring fun experience like the grind in Flowing Lands for Tier 2 to take months. Well, my advice would be kind of set piecemeal goals there instead of kind of, okay, brand new, largest area ever released, and I need to do everything in there by next week. Kind of break that down into smaller chunks. So instead of kind of adding up absolutely everything, it's a bit like if you started the game today and you go, well, okay, I'm in the meadow and I need to be in the floating islands in a month or two. Well, no, there's kind of a lot more of a journey to go through there, and definitely the floating islands being so big, it's almost a game in and of itself. So that even just kind of the depth, the reward structure in there is pretty well set up to almost be like a whole new version of MouseHunt in kind of a smaller but similar way. So I'd break that down. Kind of start with pick a trap that you're interested in, but don't kind of set yourself up with the goal of I'm going to get everything as quickly as possible, or yeah, you're kind of going through the same process of starting off the game and saying, well, I'm going to try to beat this as quickly as possible. Well, that's not the nature of the game. It's very slow paced as you go along. Ryan asks, premature maybe, but when will the Great Winter Hunt start? It should start early in December, so our goals are to kind of start around the similar time as we did last year, so that was in the early portion of December. No official release date yet, as we're just going to kind of start up QA and testing next week, so by next Friday we'll have a much more kind of firm sense of that. And as well, on the topic of the Great Winter Hunt, what kind of tweaks, changes would you like to see made to golems in terms of kind of specific rewards for specific areas? It's definitely a whole lot of areas now with over 60 areas in the game. That's kind of a whole lot of golem reward tables to put together. And when you kind of think about it, well, it might take kind of a day to craft one together carefully. Might take a day to kind of play through it, and then another day to get feedback, iterate. So in some ways, those little reward tables almost take a week to really kind of put together. Now, grain of salt, some areas are a lot quicker, easier, and less significant than other areas, and that speeds it up. But with that in mind, I mean, that's almost, that's like a year of work to really go through those with a fine-tooth comb. So it's kind of been nice repeating the Golem event every year. We're able to get feedback from hunters and then kind of narrow in on maybe one or two areas and kind of spend a little bit more time kind of refining those. Sejan asks, will we get a Great Winter Hunt dirigible skin set? I think we're going to try. Hasn't been illustrated yet, so I can't kind of say with certainty, but I think that is on the short list of things that we're going to try to add there. Most likely for Advent chocolate, so they'll open to suggestions there as well. Champion Fire, not hat exclusive. That has been some feedback as well. And pending playtesting, that change kind of has been made, but we're going to be playtesting that in the coming weeks. So Champion's Fire has been added to the exceptional slot for the Valor Rift Golems as well. Froma Rift Golems got over nerfed, and we're going to take a little closer look at that, but it's definitely, that's kind of a sensitive area in terms of energy and sustainability. So it is kind of a tricky one to come up with rewards for. Kind of our goal or our aim there when we're looking at Golem rewards is to try to make it about double or triple in terms of kind of loot that you would obtain if you just spent that time normally hunting. So the Great Winter Hunt is about 4 weeks long, And so you can almost think of it, well, if I send all my golems to, I don't know, let's say Queso Geyser, or maybe like Queso River, you can expect to get a similar amount of queso, bland queso, as you would if you spent 4 weeks there, and then kind of double or triple that. That's kind of, roughly the ballpark that we look for. Froma Rift Golems need to be buffed. What would you like to see added to the Froma Rift Golems? Better percent loot for jackpot items. Well, that's a tricky one as well. You can kind of think of it, let's say a rare drop takes on average 1,000 hunts to obtain. Then the golems will bring it back in 500 to maybe 300 hunts. It's kind of where we look at that to put that. So they take 25 hunts to come back, so that's about every 20 golems on average would be how long it would take for them to bring back an item that was 1,000 hunts worth of time and effort, if that makes sense. And so that, that's kind of a small chance, and then there's definitely kind of a wide deviation set on that in terms of whether you might see it on the very first one, but it's also not uncommon to go 40, 50 in a row without seeing it. So that's kind of the nature of them as well. So if you're kind of, some golems, I feel like some areas, it's more predictable, more consistent. It's like, all right, I know what I'm getting back. I'm kind of farming loot. And then there's other ones where you just don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag, and so it's up to you to decide, well, do I want to kind of chase a rare chance at something, or do I want to go with something a little bit more slow, steady, and predictable? Did Dave say it was October 2020? I don't think so. I think I said November. Final answer, Jules, glass, or yet. Yeah, we've been kind of workshopping that. Like I said, we're going to play test. Right now, the version that's going into play testing does have a kind of modest amount of sky glass and sky ore in the golems, although it's in the basic and the valuable slot, but not the exceptional slot. And jewels right now, they are in there, but they are rather low, and they're kind of slower than they would be normal. But if you take into account as well, right now we also have low altitude treasure troves and high altitude treasure troves, and those both have a rare chance of containing a jewel as well. So there's a few different ways to potentially get a jewel back from a golem. Stejan asks, could you convince Jacob to draw the Great Winter Hunt dirigible skin on a Feedback Friday stream? I think it might be completed before next Friday, but I'd have to touch base with the art team. Will we get passing parcels this year? I'll jot that down as well. There's kind of a little bit of work to get those to work correctly, so I fear we may not have time for that. I kind of miss it. You never know who opens it. Froma Rift Golems give way too much energy charms for the exceptional slot. Well, energy charms are kind of nice. I mean, that's kind of... unfortunately, like the cheese, there's a lot of time and effort, kind of going back to that comparison of how long on average it takes to produce an item, or on average to loot an item. And some of the cheese there takes quite a bit of time to put together, and so that makes the cheese pretty rare. So I think kind of the first iteration of golems, they were kind of really far off base. They were nowhere near kind of the intended double or triple speed. They were probably closer to 10 times speed. So, I mean, that's kind of a relic of the past, and that has to be kind of pulled in a little bit. Karen says, I sure make my way through the Forgotten Islands with a vengeance, with Forgotten Charms from my Great Winter Hunt golems brought me back from Zokor Labyrinth. Thanks, little buddies. Yeah, that's kind of another thing. I think the initial 2017 version of the golems, it was just raining Forgotten Charms, and to this day, that is still where all the Forgotten Charms are in the economy. So we've been slowly kind of phasing out the power type charms. Mako says, can Floating Islands golems not have Cloud Curd and maybe Paragon loot? Okay, just don't Cloud Curd. Well, what would you like to see instead? Have lesser chance of getting energy and more students masters loot? And we can take a look. It's just, again, I kind of get the sentiment of, hey, that was exceptionally way too good of a reward, so can we please have more? But again, we're trying to kind of keep it in line with where it's either double or triple loot, and those were kind of dialed up. They were way past that, so that was kind of why they got kind of toned down, because they were definitely bar none the absolute best place to send your golems in terms of return on time. Will the Pirate and Cloud Cruiser Balloon wholesale be available from the Golem? No. That was kind of, I think, another little tweak we made to the Valor Rift Golems, kind of based on feedback, seeing how that worked out, is the skins have also been removed as well. So those kind of tradable items that people generally only need or want one of, that kind of introduces more supply than there's demand for. So kind of staying clear of those to not kind of open that can of worms. Could the non-exceptional slots of the Living Garden get changed to contain Lunaria petals? Having a single area that gives both would be a huge quality of life boost, in my opinion. Yeah, we can take another look. I think they're not too bad. That's even last year I was sending a lot of mine there, and now I'm creeping in. I forget how many Carmine catches I have now, but I thought I was creeping in on 1,000, so it definitely helped me out. I'm gonna check it out here. Carmine. I'm gonna search. Twisted. I'm at 974. So I think they were pretty good. They helped me out a lot, at least with the Living Garden. Slightly smaller gifts were a lot of fun. I think those appear as a gift of the day, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. There are so many Winter Hunt gifts. That's another kind of... Actually, that's another feedback question we'll get into when it comes to Lunar New Year, because it kind of ties in with some of the collectibles. Will the upgrading of golems remain the same with exceptional growth? Yes, so that'll be identical. You'll be using a different item instead of repurposed heater coils. They are MILK and cookies. But all the quantities that both you get for you get back from the golems and how much it costs to upgrade the golem generators has remained unchanged. Feeling when hack gives you Forgotten Charms. Well, Forgotten Charms have been removed from Labyrinth and Zolkor Golem, so I believe they've been replaced with Shuffler's Cubes, so there will be no more Forgotten Charms from those Golems. Make corkboards reliable. They are on the backlog of things that need a complete overhaul. Are there any plans to increase the encounter rate of Dr. Eller for the Relic Hunter maps? Yeah, no specific plans. Definitely the Iceberg Generals could use a little bit of rethought. They're not exactly the kind of best way to encounter a mouse. Final Heart, if we're dreaming. Ascended Elder Cheese and Unstable Brooms. Well, yeah, I mean, there's some things they're not too easy to work in. They kind of make the area way too sustainable. So Forum Rift kind of is what it is, and you may have to pick a different area if it's not quite your cup of tea. We can kind of go over to Lunar New Year 2021, which I wrote down 2020 in my notes several times, I noticed this morning, but it is indeed, it will be 2021. 2020 will come to an end at some point, I think. And we've started development on the 2021 Lunar New Year event. Our goal is to kind of have all the main work wrapped up before the end of the year, so that when we come back from the holiday break in the new year, we're going to be able to immediately kind of start playtesting QA, wrapping everything up and finalizing that. The event's going to be very similar to last year, if not identical. It has some refreshed rewards, and of course there'll be a Ox theme to the whole event as well. Now, kind of in terms of a feedback question, last year we completed the set of animal masks, and so this kind of touches on collectibles again. We've kind of gone through the entire zodiac of animal masks. Now, we haven't made it all the way through the set of jade bases, but now there is a mask for every zodiac animal. And we're wondering if this year hunters would like to see a new set of collectibles started or others continued. There are some other animal themes that were kind of on the go. There's a few one-offs that we could kind of pick up again. For instance, there is already a tiger plushie and a squishy sheep. And those are both collectibles. There's also, I think, just one single candle. I think the Scented Fiery Rooster candle. And we were wondering if you'd like to kind of see us, maybe we add either an ox plushie or maybe an ox candle of some sort, and kind of start that as commemorating this next cycle of Lunar New Year animals. And even just the broader topic as well of just collectibles in general. So we've been a little bit hesitant to add new collectibles because the entire feature kind of feels like it needs an overhaul, or at least a really significant quality of life upgrade. Just kind of something along the lines of organizing them into sets, kind of adding some hints or tips of where you find them as well. So when there's a collectible you don't own, it's not just kind of this nebulous mystery of where do I track this thing down, or even ideas like, hey, when you complete a set, there's just a small one-time bonus you get, maybe King's credits, something of that nature. That said, we have no idea when we would have time to see that overhaul, but we've been kind of, in the back of our minds, hesitant to keep adding more collectibles because there are just a ton of them. I see a lot of love in the chat for plushies. Plushies would be cool. Plushies are wonderful. I suggest a new Zodiac themed plushie. Raphael says, I can't find the meaning for snowball charms, even upgraded there 2 week, give a possibility to transform them into something useful. Well, I'd recommend going to the marketplace then, especially the ultimate snowball charms are worth a pretty penny, so you could sell them to other hunters who are more interested in those charms than you are, and then you have some gold, and you can use that to buy something that you're more interested in, and that's kind of the fun aspect of player-driven economies. You might have something that either you don't need or want, you can give that to somebody who has a need for it, and now you have gold and you can buy something that you need or want. You can pick up some Super Brie, Magic Essence, supply kit to fire up the golden shield, charms for a specific area. The possibilities are endless. A new Zodiac themed plushie. I see a lot of love for plushies, not too much love for candles. Mike says, I have come to the conclusion that I need a Hydro Trap, 2 bases, and a Slack in the Box in my life, and I don't know why. Yeah, of course, there will be new rewards to earn. They're going to work very similar to how it did in years past, where you, when you decorate the HUD, that adds different mice to the encounter pool. They drop festive cookies. There are 4 different varieties, and then you spend those cookies in the shop for a journal theme, 1 new weapon, 2 new bases, and a rather unique item. It's almost like a codex in a way. It's kind of similar in your inventory and gives you buffs, a Slack in the Box. There should be way more collectibles in the game, honestly. That's interesting to hear. Yeah, like I said, part of us has been hesitant just seeing how many there are. It feels a little overwhelming at times without kind of using an external tool, whether you're kind of looking at the wiki or kind of a player-contributed spreadsheet to try to figure out, okay, here's a list of 183 things. That's a very specific number I pulled off the top of my head. I don't know if I'm quite right there. But then just trying the cognitive overload of trying to figure out, okay, where do I go and get all these now? And even just kind of having that reassurance, okay, maybe there's an event going on. And there's Great Winter Hunt collectibles. Well, did I get them all or didn't I? And pretty well, you almost have to kind of get a little cheat sheet going on the side to figure that out. There are 181. I was pretty close. Plus 56 limited edition collectibles. Will we be able to collect missed masks we may have missed in past years? I believe so. If they're not limited edition, they are intended to come back. That's a bit of a challenge for us as well with the sheer quantity of convertibles, and even both in terms of in the game itself, as well as kind of in the code and our content management systems. They're not organized in a particularly intuitive way. So we even have all these lists and spreadsheets and things we keep on the go to try to keep all these collectibles straight in our head because there's just so many. Can LE traps become non-LE? No. Edwin says, hi Dave, any more tease info? The Hydro Trap and 2 bases special effect. That might be good to touch base on as well. Just kind of get initial impressions. We're kind of workshopping everything a little bit. We've kind of did a little proof of concept, but we haven't really properly play tested everything to really fine tune it. But as I mentioned, a journal theme, that's pretty self-explanatory. New Hydro Trap. It's going to be a rather good Hydro Trap if you're kind of a low-level or mid-level player. Has a low title requirement on it. At the moment, I believe it has plus 18 luck and quite a bit of power. I can't remember off the top of my head, so it's a pretty good trap if you're low mid-level. And kind of a niche effect that might be more interesting, where it's not just purely a collectible trap if you're higher level, is it is a scoundrel slayer, and we were spelling slayer as in a sleigh because it looks like a sleigh, and it has a chance to instantly capture pirate-themed mice, including the sky pirates of floating islands, to a degree where when you are hunting the sky pirates on the floating islands, that is the best trap to be capturing pirates with. The two new bases. One is a gift of the day base, which will have mice, or give mice a chance to drop whatever the current gift of the day is. So a little bit of a niche thing you can pull out when it's particularly good, especially during events when the gift of the day is sometimes something pretty good to help out in an event. As well as kind of side note, when we were putting that together, it allowed us to finally fix a long-standing kind of intermittent issue where every now and then the gift of the day would change in the middle of the day. So at the launch of the Great Winter Hunt, how the gift of the day works kind of behind the scenes has been completely gutted and changed, so it's much more reliable, and that'll kind of take care of that very niche rare occurrence. It also allows us in the gifting interface, we'll be able to show what tomorrow's gift of the day is going to be. The other base is for Valorift, an elixir exchanger that is going to be converting elixirs in your inventory into tower sigils. Works everywhere, so you don't even need to be in the Valorift to be taking advantage of that. And finally, the Slack in a Box, which is something that probably needs the most kind of play testing and tuning. But as you can maybe guess from the name, it looks like a jack in the box, but there's a cactus inside that. And every time you capture a mouse, the crank winds up a little bit, and it adds a power bonus and a luck bonus to the Slack or the Slack 2, and up until the point when it pops, and then the bonuses reset and they start over again. But for those last few hunts, it is makes those Slack traps quite the potent law trap. Gift of the day base, cool. One little caveat, and hopefully it's not too big of an issue, is the gift of the day changes at midnight UTC, which for myself right now, that's 7 p.m. Toronto time. And so, kind of depending on where you're playing in the world, we were a little worried that, okay, that's a little bit awkward, right? Because you might wake up in the morning, see there's a gift of the day, and, depending when the Nanian day changes or when midnight UTC is for you in your time zone. But we're hoping we're adding to the gifting interface, you're going to be able to see what tomorrow's gift of the day is. And we're kind of hoping that smooths things out. So when it is something good, you can see it ahead of time. And when you go to bed, if hey, the day changes typically while I'm asleep or while I'm away from the game, you can change the base ahead of time. So, we're a little bit nervous about that kind of rough edge it had on it. So we're going to kind of play test a little bit, and hopefully everything feels good, but be interested to kind of hear Hunter's thoughts on that as well. Slack 3 finally. I guess you could kind of think of this in terms of this is the spiritual successor to the Slack 2, so you can almost think of it like it is creating a Slack 3. Could we have it go the elixir base go the other way? At least the option like the Relic Hunter base, I'd rather have elixirs over sigils. That's interesting because typically we see hunters have kind of more elixir than they know what to do with. Because it's pretty abundant when you are outside the tower anyway. Michelle says, yay for gift of the day fix. Yep. Kind of, a little behind the scenes technical note there. So previously, when the day changed over, whoever happened to look at the gift of the day first, the game would say, okay, you're in charge of picking a random gift, and then I'll remember that for 24 hours and then until, the next one comes. And so, that's not really a very great way to do it. That was very antiquated. That was probably written about 10 years ago. And so the new way is much more predictable, where instead it uses the current day on the calendar. Well, not quite on the calendar, but certain kind of the combination of the current day of the year as well as the year to kind of use a seeded lookup table of like, okay, on this day it is this gift. And that comes with the benefit now that it is very consistent and predictable, where we can say, okay, what's the gift of the day going to be in October 2023, October 1st, 2023, and you can just run it through that function of this is what the gift of the day will be, unless there's an event or something going on, then that kind of changes the available gifts. Slack in the Box kind of sounds like Father Winter's timepiece. Yeah, that's actually a similar way of looking at it, but you won't have to capture specific mice, and it works anywhere. So it's almost like every now and then you have a really overpowered law trap, but it only lasts for a few hunts, and then it pops, and you'll either have to choose to power it back up. So, depending on kind of what your objectives are, it's not the most convenient bonus to make use of, but it's powerful. So there's kind of a trade-off there to take into account. Elixirs to secrets would be more welcome. Well, that might be a little bit too good. Slack 3 plus Cactus Charm. Yeah, the Cactus Charm should just work as normal with the Slack 2, so it's not actually a new trap. So it goes in your inventory, and it just makes the Slack 1 and 2 more powerful. Will the Advent Christmas calendar make a return? Yes, actually, that is all set to go. We've even kind of reintegrated that. It's been merged back in, ready to go live. So that's all kind of done, signed off on, ready to launch. That's going to come next Thursday. Which is before the start of December, which makes sense for an advent calendar. There'll be the rewards have been refreshed, as well as there's a new piece of art to slowly uncover, or if you're impatient, you can definitely find the image if you like. So we had a lot of love for plushies, kind of circling back to Lunar New Year. And kind of the broader topic of collectibles didn't seem to cause any undue stress, at least for hunters in the chat. Elixir too expensive and the sigil's relatively useless for most people who use that base. That's interesting. Elixirs can be converted into gold, so they're pretty valuable. Yeah, fair enough. More valuable than the charms you could buy with the sigils, or just being able to know, okay, every time I load up my augmentations, I'm going to be good to go. Will the Gift of the Day base drop Gift of the Day during event season? Yes. Now, again, there's a little bit of a caveat there as well. Where when an event comes to an end, if you were inactive and you come back to the game later, your trap checks will technically in your journal be dated for when the event was active, but because kind of the spirit of the event is gone, they would be not the Gift of the Day during that event. So that's kind of a bit of a limitation just in how trap checks work. But fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. So there was a couple rough edges on the Gift of the Day base, but it felt pretty fun while we were putting it together. So hopefully those rough edges kind of are not too significant. I have max number of ancient relics. Well, maybe buy a few scroll cases, open them up in hopes of finding some rare map dust. Otherwise, rest comfortably knowing you are set. Yeah, there isn't technically a max, but you could definitely have enough where you're pretty well don't have to think about spending them anymore. Sigils to elixirs would be more used. That's interesting. When you run a query, most players have way too much elixir and not very many sigils, so it'd be kind of interesting to kind of see. Maybe we'll have to do a deeper dive to look kind of what the distribution of that is. Any changes to naughty and nice maps this year? Nothing kind of comes to mind. I think the only significant change, naughty maps no longer have animated snow. And the chests from last year as well, although technically they have snow at the moment. Before the event starts, all the snow was removed from the game. And all the golem parts, reinforced, well, not the reinforced ice shards, but what was reinforced ice shards and became repurposed heater coils, those will be gone as well. So you kind of start from scratch in terms of progression things, but other items like the cheese, the charms, that all stays in your inventory. Why not make them switchable? That might be something to check out. What if the base had a switch? Yeah, the stealth base has a switch, so. Animated snow will still be there, right? There is animated snow. You can still smash excess golem parts. However, the naughty maps will no longer contain animated snow as a reward. That is kind of the one sort of time gate in the resource collection of the event. And so kind of hindsight, that wasn't a great thing to put in maps because anything in maps is technically tradable. And so it was a little bit weird to remove the one and only time gate in the whole event. And so then at that point, it was down to, you know, how fast could you exchange map with hunters and how fast can you click on the interface would determine how many golems you could send out. Are there plans to make Empyrean Jewel become easier to obtain in the future? No means poor player, but the amount of gold time needed to obtain 225 jewels seems a bit high. Well, I suggest kind of break that down. Instead of looking, I need 225 as fast as possible, pick, you know, one of the traps that you're interested in and kind of use that as your benchmark. In the same way, if you're just starting out in the game, kind of you wouldn't set your immediate goal to be, I need to capture all the mice, right? Because that's going to take several years to accomplish. And so, you know, I would just kind of, you know, set a more reasonable starting goal that isn't like complete the entire thing immediately. Definitely there are the two of the traps, the kind of the tier 2 arcane and tier 2 for tactical, are kind of, it's anticipated that's not really a trap not everyone's expected to have. So even going forward for new areas for quite some time, kind of when we determine the strength of mice in that, we're going to assume, well, people don't have these traps. They're very above and beyond. It's not kind of intended that people are going to be able to obtain those traps anytime soon. I expect to complete the flow down traps before well, you know, that is a relative question. It would definitely be possible in about 2 years or so. You know, that's it. We have also been shopping kind of a tier 10 or a level 10 Oculus or kind of a next kind of expansion to the floating islands as well. That might kind of shake up some of the reward structure, but no definite plans on that yet. Haven't even kind of prototyped it. Small goals, yes. Yeah, goal 1, get access to the floating islands. Exactly, right? So, I mean, somebody signing up for the game today, if they said, okay, I'm going to unlock the floating islands, that, you know, they'd be kind of working on that for a couple of years. So kind of in the similar vein, kind of take it one day at a time. I would kind of break that down. Don't think of it as add up everything and this is my goal. Kind of, you know, pick one of the traps to start, I would say. You're going to say pump 11 for a moment. No, actually, for a little bit, for when we were putting together Big Jack, originally we were going to do a level 11 pump, but that kind of shifted and just turned into the Big Jack event. Edwin asks, is the second base the Valor Rift base Rift type? And what is the title requirement for it? Yes, it does have the Rift Walker / Rift Stalker set bonus, and the title requirement to equip it is Archduke. Will Snowball Showdown have Snow Golem parts and craft? You know, off the top of my head, we haven't kind of tuned that up and updated them yet. So off the top of my head, I don't know. So I won't risk saying something entirely inaccurate. And kind of shifting back to Lunar New Year, there was one more feedback question relevant to Lunar New Year as well that we kind of touch base and just get general impressions on bonus mouse captures and just kind of that whole system as a whole. So last year, the Valentine's mice were bonus catches and kind of themed up as they were coupling off with another mice, and so you'd capture 2 at once, which is simultaneously cute and a little bit morbid depending on which trap you use to capture that mouse. But just kind of looking for general feedback, whether that's something you'd like to continue to see, kind of, you know, used in moderation here and there, you know, specifically for the Valentine mice, if that's something we should repeat in 2021. And now something in 2021, the Valentine's mini event, it'll probably just be a few days. It won't be too significant or too long. It will overlap with the Lunar New Year event, whereas last year it didn't. So it was a little bit of a larger event last year in that regard. But we're looking for a way. Obviously, there's event mice themed for Valentine, so there has to be kind of a way to capture, collect those, unlock those silhouettes. Of the bonus heap means where I can hunt where I want. Yeah, that's kind of the sentiment we were having as well. Especially knowing how Lunar New Year works. If we put them in a stockpile location and made them regular encounters, then it's almost, you know, it doesn't feel very fun to have to, well, hey, I have candles I want to be using, but I also want to get the Valentine's mice, so now I got to go to a stockpile and kind of put my candles on pause. It was funny though, so good to keep. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Just the theming of it felt right. Ken asks, will rare map dust drop remain 10% from nice chests? No, actually, that was nowhere near made sense, so that has been more or less removed. Yeah, nobody wants to hunt for heart mice specifically except for crown sickos. Well, to each their own. I like hunting king's crowns, and I wouldn't describe myself as a sicko. I did enjoy the bonus mice. 2 thumbs up. All right, well, it seems like nothing but love for Valentine's bonus mice hunt, so we did decide to stick to that plan, so it's good to kind of have confirmation that we're not way off base. Brian is going to go against the grain and say I'd rather have Valentine's mice drop area loot and be regular encounters than bonus catches without the area loot. Even if it's overlapping with Lunar New Year, though, I mean, how do you feel about having to choose between doing the Lunar New Year event or the Valentine's event? If they're regular encounters, and you're kind of forced to choose. Very best says, if the dirigible skins are used to make your dirigible prettier and have fun with them while hunting, why are this rare loot drop rewardings only? Well, there's a little bit for everything, or a little bit for everyone there. Some of them are more accessible than others, or easier to obtain, whereas the other ones are kind of geared more towards players who like to find rare items to either kind of keep them for themselves, or they're kind of exciting things that you could sell on the marketplace and then buy some other things with the gold you earn there. So again, it's a little polarizing. Some players really like kind of jackpot, super rare things to find. Other players like more slow and steady. I'm just going to put in a whole lot of time and eventually get that thing. Which is kind of interesting to kind of see jewels, right? And the fact that some of those very difficult to acquire traps are kind of on par with labyrinth traps and stuff, but kind of being able to see, well, just every time I do this thing I get a little bit closer versus, well, the next one could be the one where I see it. So it's kind of interesting to see kind of the different polarizing nature of the 2 different ways of going about it. I like the bonus mice for very small and direct events. Yeah, kind of used in moderation. Certainly if there's too many of them, it starts to feel a little bit weird. The mobile app as well could use a little bit of love, and that's hard to see those bonus sketches. Yonel asks, will you include the jewel in golems? At the moment, yes. There are both high and low altitude treasure troves, which have a chance of obtaining a jewel, as well as a jewel directly. Surgeon says in some very specific cases can get a bonus on as well, but it's kind of too prevalent, it would ruin it as well. Yeah, it does have like a weird vibe to it where it kind of needs to be used in moderation, kind of getting that sentiment. That's kind of the impression as well we've had through over the years anyway. But there's some chance for rare map dropping, right? Yes. So if you're referring to the nice lists, it's just been brought back in line with the cost of how many relics that scroll case costs to be a little more consistent with the rest of the scroll cases. So that was probably years ago a copy-paste error that somebody made, probably copied a scroll case that costs a lot of relics and has a high chance of containing rare map dust, and never updated that. So it's kind of a long-standing error. But typically the chance of finding rare map dust is related to the number of relics that the scroll case costs. So they're all kind of, roughly the same chance of finding rare map dust. Can Plank Road's notes have some effect like Rift Codex? That as well as on the back burner. I don't know about giving them a specific effect per se, but just kind of bringing them to life a little bit more. I think keeping them in line with a collectible kind of lore type thing. It is in the idea bank, and we are kind of slowly trying to form plans so that we can take on more projects than we currently do. But it's one of the challenges of the team being pretty small right now. We pretty well are full-time on getting each event ready, and then full-time on getting kind of a new adventure at least once a year. That kind of pretty well maxes us out. As well as some challenges just as the game goes on, as more content puts in the game, that indirectly adds more maintenance that the game needs as well. So that's kind of a little bit of a catch-22. The more things that get added to the game, the more upkeep it needs over time. So it's but we're kind of trying to shift gears a little bit and restructure ourselves to be able to better take that on. Will there be a return of recap on FBF in the forums? I missed that as well, so now it's time to watch Feedback Friday. I think I posted one last time. Hopefully I didn't forget, but I do have some notes. I plan on posting those on the forum as well. Dark says, wasn't aware of the amount of snow gained from maps since I just joined the mapping scene recently. just smash golden parts as sold as bells, made almost 100 mil. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the fun of a player-driven economy. There is autonomy in the economy where you can set your own goals. If there's something that you have that you're not interested in or don't need, you can sell it for gold and you can get something from another player. If the Valentine's Day mice drop dumpling or Nangouta or even candle, they would be very good and fun to catch. Well, they could still do that as bonus catches, and that's kind of the plan as well, to give them some Valentine's themed drops as well as some Lunar New Year themed drops to help tie them in. Thanks for the explanation about dirigible skins. Yeah, you got it. I mean, there's some in the shop, so there's kind of... and hopefully we can keep adding more over time. But I think the porcelain one is the most accessible. That's kind of, hey, it's there in the shop. It doesn't cost a lot. And if anything, it's to encourage you to try out the whole system, right? To have some dirigible skin on day one you can try out and be like, oh, cool, I get how this is work. I'm interested in more. Then there is the... is it mostly Pichu themed? There's kind of a vine themed one as well. It needs a little bit of area loot. That was a little bit of an experiment to see, well, you know, is this a good use for loot from old areas to be able to get dirigible skins? Then there is the ore in the glass one. That one is a little bit daunting, but by the time you upgrade your Oculus all the way, that's okay. A little bit of a stretch goal to really show, look at me, I have mastered the art of collecting sky ore and sky glass. And then the tradable ones are kind of in varying degrees. The Warden one isn't necessarily relatively rare in terms of if you set out to get it for yourself, that would be rather rare drop you're chasing. But in the terms of the economy of 10,000 players all pursuing that goal, it's going to enter the economy relatively regularly. And the other two are a little bit more up there. So the pirate one, also you have to do pirate maps. So there's kind of a significant time and effort goes into finding one of those. But that's why it's tradable as well. When is Richard the Rich going to be added back to maps? We're going to do that with the Lunar New Year event. So we've already kind of put together a task as part of our Lunar New Year milestone as a reminder, as well as when we took them out in the patch notes, we made a note as well there to let players know when Lunar New Year launches, Richard the Rich and the Sky Pirates will be back on the elite level maps. Dalton says the mobile app has a pretty big issue in displaying inventory. After the first few entries, the rest are blanked out. Yeah, the inventories have been truncated. So again, kind of, on the topic of maintenance, there's been kind of a long-standing bit of a technical debt, as we like to call it, scaling issue in the mobile app that kind of finally reached its tipping point. And so we've kind of found that was sort of the short-term band-aid fix, if you will. If we truncate all the descriptions of the items in the mobile app would load, whereas it stopped loading entirely. So we figured, well, that's better than not being able to use it at all. And now I think we also now have kind of a next interim solution to that as well, where you're gonna be able to see inventory descriptions again. Kind of had to do a little bit of technical refactoring, took a little bit. But then even long-term as well, we got to find time to take on a much more significant project of making sure, well, that same problem will never happen again. When are tournaments getting an overhaul? Any Mega Great Winter Hunt tournaments this year? I think there's an existing Mega Great Winter Hunt tournament rule set. I'll jot that down as well as a reminder to kind of make sure some gets scheduled. As for a tournament overhaul, no plans. Not to say we wouldn't like to, but there's no definite plans to do a tournament overhaul. But again, it's another one of those projects you can it's on the list with like I said, collectible overhauls, mobile overhaul, treasure map overhaul. There's no shortage of things that could benefit from a few weeks of a developer's time. I often think that Adam Sandler movie where you could pause time with the remote. I feel like that would be great if we could just pause, make a whole bunch of updates, unpause, and release them. As long as we don't still need to eat food somehow during that pause time, because that might get very awkward. Any consideration on allowing easier loot balancing for chi tokens, or allowing them to be smashed into something useful in case of RNG? From a Rift in particular, I think you have a little bit of autonomy there, but I'd have to kind of dive into that. Should dirigible skins be moved to collectibles instead of special so we can show them off on the profile tab? That might be an okay kind of interim solution. We do want to incorporate them on your hunter profile, but again, only so many hours in the day, and it's kind of sitting on the back burner. Durham, you can choose to display our top 5 collectibles. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's so many fun things we could be doing with collectibles. It's just finding the time to be able to do it. Bram says, in the Discord Feedback Friday room, you asked if you think map chests should be tradable. Can you clarify the question? I mean, I was just stirring the pot a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to kind of see all the different angles where basically treasure maps are pseudo-tradable as is. But yeah, no plans to make them tradable, but just kind of an interesting topic of discussion. Since we're done with all 12 Zodiacs, time to move on to 12 horoscope themed base. Well, I think we'd like to at least complete the set of the Jade bases. Is there a plan to add a trap setup save button in every area? So the trap library is a little bit of a experiment in that regard, and yeah, it's something we'd kind of like to be able to explore, but we just don't have the time. Will Lunar New Year candles double triple floating island loot? So currently the plan is yes, let everything go. Go ahead just as they work in every other area. So no plans to put any kind of restrictions or special gameplay in the floating islands. So the candles will work as expected. Is the Platinum Tournament base ever coming? No plans to add a Platinum base, no. Sound Prof says, not sure if it's just me, but logging into the app and browser versions are pretty glitchy. Will constantly show up an error. Browser refreshing solves it. This morning we did fix an issue. So there was a small problem on browser. Logging in, sometimes it would not work, and there was kind of a very edge case problem that cropped up. If your account was in a very specific state when you tried to log in, you'd get the something went wrong message, but we did fix that this morning. I'd love to have a save trap set up in every location, not just on the mobile app. Well, yeah, that needs a little consolidation. On browser, you can save favorite pieces of equipment, and on browser, you can save an entire setup in one shot. So again, kind of another project sitting in the idea bank. I think we surpassed 300 things we'd like to do in that said little area. Stejan says, if animated snow gets removed from chests, could it be made more slightly accessible through other means to compensate? Buffing the top % spots and turnies could help a lot. Yeah, that's another issue as well. We're looking at just kind of increasing the overall drop rate of golem parts just a little bit as well. So that kind of should have a little bit of a similar effect. Basically, there's way too many energy charms. Really? I feel like I can never have enough. Would Widow's Web and Unstable Broom become some of the items that cannot be double tripled during Lunar New Year? No plans to do that. Just kind of leaving it be. And do I have another slide? I guess just trivia I have left. Actually, one feedback question as well. So an interesting thing came up with the Relic Hunter release. So kind of, we spoke about consolidating and making things consistent between browser and mobile. And one of the things there was to make it consistent across browser and mobile when you're looking at how many mice are left on a map. Now, both on browser and mobile, it displays that as a fraction. So if there's a map with 35 mice on it, you might see something like 24 out of 35 mice have been caught. Now, before, and I think it was just on browser, I forget which one showed it which way, but it said 11 mice remaining. And so kind of, again, want to put out a feeler. What are initial impressions? Which is better? Would you like to see 24 out of 35 caught, or would you like to see 11 mice remaining on the map? Kind of even just discussing it internally, we were thinking, well, the number of mice remaining on the map is kind of the most important prevalent piece of information. That seems like that's more important than how many mice were on the map when you happen to start it anyway. Yeah, Ryan said it felt so weird to change, but can live with it. Mice remaining. Just make a toggle. That's an option as well. I mean, wherever we can, it's nice to avoid a toggle. Just because, again, slippery slope isn't the best argument out there, but It's just, that raises more maintenance of having to maintain the toggle, the interface growing over time. It'll probably, if that many toggles get to a point where, okay, now I need a system to help manage all my toggles, as well as just kind of a little bit increased support as well when people say, hey, how do I thought this used to say this and now it says this, and often it's, well, you changed that a year ago and you forgot you changed it. Remaining. One vote for fraction. That seems relatively in the majority there, that remaining. Yeah, and two, kind of when we discussed it internally, kind of our takeaway was, like I said, the number of mice you have left to go on the map, that feels like the most important piece of information. So that I think we might swap that back to the way it was. Would love the toggle. The thing is, though, you can still see both. So you can open up the whole map and you'll be able to see the fraction. It's more about kind of on the areas of the interface where there's very limited real estate. So in the browser, that's that little tiny spot up on the blue marble HUD. And on browser, it's the banner that appears on camp. There's not enough room to put them both, and it might be a little bit noisy. So if it said 9 mice remaining, you tap it, you look at the map, and you see 24 out of 35. Then you can see them both still. Not taking away information, it's just deciding which one's more important to put sort of at a glance. Something like 44 out of 45, 1 mouse remaining. I think there's just not quite enough, especially on mobile. Right, we kind of have to pick one to prioritize, and fraction equals sense of accomplishment. Yeah, that was kind of the counter argument was, well, now I feel like we're progressing. Look how many we've done, and kind of admiring all the progress made is also a unique kind of feeling as well. Besides, if there's one thing mouse hunters are good at, it's math. Well, I don't know if that's a blanket statement for everything. Even this morning, it's not so bad with, say, evenly divisible by 10. But 24 to 35, for a second I went 16. I was like, wait a minute. No, that's 11. Okay. Makes sense. Remaining is more important. All right. Well, I think we've been convinced. So, and the rest of the dev team also kind of was leaning that way. So that might help us at least confirm where we're going there. Well, as we always do, we'll end with trivia. I forgot I started early, so this has probably been a little bit long here for sure. And I'm just testing my reward link. My computer isn't liking that. I might start... I don't know how the video is. It's really, really choppy right now in my preview of the stream. And so I think I might start using my desktop computer. Because I don't think my laptop can handle encoding video. 3224. It's not a number. I'm trying to find the trivia slide. Hopefully, is the answer up? Uh-oh. What do you think? Do you think the answer is already going to be up, or did I remember to hide it ahead of time? Let's find out. All right. Ooh, that is some horrible looking text. All right. In some very hard to read text on a colorful background here, this week's trivia question is, what was the unique name given to the very first Lunar New Year event? 42 is incorrect. You're close. Sounds like 42. No, it doesn't. It's a bit choppy, not too bad for me. Okay. That's good to know. It's good to stream from my computer because I have all my work stuff, or my laptop because I have all my work stuff on there. And my if I used my desktop, I wouldn't have access to that. Heart of the Tiger. That's close enough for me, but then Swift comes in and got the exact correct answer. Heart of the Tiger Party. Heart of the Tiger Party. It was in February 2010. Wow. That was a long time ago. I will put that reward link in the chat as well. But in case you're watching this recorded, well, depending on what your YouTube layout looks like, you can probably see the chat next to it as well if you go into the mini player mode or whatever they call it, to click the link conveniently, or otherwise you could copy it down from some hard to read text right there. It's not choppy at all for me. Okay, well, good to know. It's a little choppy on Dave's side. Yeah, in my preview. Yeah, oh, that now it seems pretty good. Now it seems pretty fluid. I think it just comes down to how much the GPU is being taxed in this slightly older laptop. Yeah, I definitely have to shut everything else down to give it as much horsepower as many system resources as possible. Thanks for the gift. Always need more King's credits. The most versatile gift of all. Any plan to buff Roma Rift Golems? I'll tell you what, I'll write it down to take a close look because there's a lot of requests. Maybe a little bit, but I think some of that sentiment stems from the first year where they were just too good. Are floating iron trolls supposed to be included in baskets and kits instead of treasure chests? I think they're in treasure chests, unless there's an inconsistency on mobile. I think I have some. Let me check this out. Inventory, treasure chests. Yep, they're in treasure chests, but maybe not on mobile. So I'll jot down, double check mobile. That's kind of another thing that needs some attention. We're narrowing in on, it's just MouseHunt 4 needs to happen pretty much to kind of correct some of these 10-year rusty parts of the game. Go buy a new laptop. This is relatively new, actually. I shouldn't say old. It's just an older model, I guess. But I mean, really, when push comes to shove, laptops usually don't have the most horsepower in them compared to a desktop. Just real estate and cooling start to play some roles. But we'll see. Maybe I could set up my desktop computer. I already have streaming software set up that I just have to log into the MouseHunt account and everything. So I think that would be pretty easy to make another profile. And I could use my desktop computer. But then, unfortunately, if I did that, though, I think I would miss being able to screen share. If we wanted to demo something, load up the game on stream, that'd be a little harder to accomplish. I guess I could still do it by using our test environment that's online. But I don't think I'd want to put all my kind of MouseHunt code and work stuff on my personal machine, just for keep it all on my work machine. 480p. Yeah, you know what? I noticed I also changed my streaming software, and I have the resolution set too low. But it seems okay here if I look at myself. Doesn't seem too bad, but yeah, the resolution is not set correctly. So I'll correct that for next time. Unfortunately, you can't change it once you start, and that's also part of the reason why usually I connect to YouTube ahead of time, check settings, and then I hit start stream. But I don't know, I'm gonna have to look at how to do that with this software, because when I hit that just to connect to YouTube as a preview, it went live immediately. So started 10 minutes early, which means I've been live for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Oh, it's probably time to wrap things up. 11 remaining. Darkstar says, a lack of developer time. Are you looking to hire people or take internships? Because I'd love to join if it could be useful. Doubt though, since I'm still in college. That is part of the plan. So we're looking to hire some more developers. And so if you're in the Toronto area, we have a job posting up on the worksite Indeed, as well as our LinkedIn. I believe we have shared it there as well. So we're slowly crafting some plans to try to get more done, but it's a challenge. We're kind of a small operation here. Any plan to make a new birthday event or new area release next year? The birthday event, right now, again, we could probably get into that on the next Feedback Friday, but are planning to repeat the Super Brief Factory event. Hopefully, we can make some adjustments based on feedback. Then there's the Spring Egg Hunt that comes to the end of event season, and we would love as well to get a new area release prepped for 2021. Looking forward to the Great Winter Hunt event. I am too. I think I'm going to send some golems to the Floating Islands, Valor Rift, and Living Garden. I can't decide. I don't know. I'm going to have to see what mood I'm in once it fires up. Can we get lots of sky, glass, and crystal sending golems to Floating Islands? There's a modest amount. and it's in the basic and the valuable slot, and the valuable has a higher quantity than the basic slot, and they don't show up every single time a golem comes back. So it'll be interesting to get kind of impressions, although I guess this is probably, if Jacob does an art stream next week, this is probably the last Feedback Friday, really before everything's kind of done, signed off on, and ready to go, because we're looking to kind of playtest and fine-tune this thing for 2 weeks, and that will put the unofficial release. I won't even tempt fate by trying to say a date right now. I'm horrible with dates. But in 2 weeks, we want to kind of play test. That said, who knows? Something might, a serious problem may come up, or something we want to take extra time to adjust. So we don't quite have a release date to announce yet. Just needs a new boss instead of Vincent again. Yeah, it's interesting. That might be something good to bring up too. If we, I'm sure we'll do a Feedback Friday where we kind of get feedback to know what should we update in the birthday event. I think we're going to start design proposal work on that probably in January. So there might be a Feedback Friday in January to that effect. It's just tough because that I feel like that antagonist, that boss, is very thematic to the factory. But will pirate curds and seals be in the floating island golems? Yes. Actually, just curds, no seals. This is dangerous, me doing this from memory without even looking at the list, but there are curds. I don't believe seals, though. Sending 1,000 to floating islands. Well, thanks for joining me, Hunters. I'll wrap things up, as this has been a relatively longer than usual Feedback Friday. Thanks for the great feedback on the Great Winter Hunt. I'll post a summary on the forums as well. Be good to kind of keep getting initial impressions on some of the rewards, as we're going to be playtesting those. I feel like I got some good sentiment from the chat to kind of put that and look through the lens of that while we're playtesting, as well as kind of keep giving feedback of what kind of tweaks, changes, and updates you'd like to see to Golem rewards. Seem pretty unanimous that bonus catches for Valentine's mice would be welcome, as well as, sure, add more collectibles. Plushies seem to be the big sentiment in the chat, so that might have us lean that way. And finally, the map question as well. I think we'll probably stick with what the dev team as well kind of agreed with, was change that back to mice remaining and make that the consistent one. So thanks for joining me. Have a fantastic weekend. Happy hunting. It'll probably be Jacob joining you next week, unless there's some change of plans. And then I'll probably see you 2 weeks from now, and we might be going over the very final of the Great Winter Hunt before we get ready to launch. So happy hunting, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
2.
You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me, I'm a mouse, you're a cat, I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry, oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back, you don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back, you don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns out